Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. You're listening to Janine Luby, aka Funny Wine Girl. And this is now, I don't know if this is a second or third week that I'm recording this podcast not drinking wine. I'm actually drinking coffee. And I think it was Mary Ray Patch a couple weeks ago I interviewed. She's like, "You're drinking coffee after 4:30? Are you crazy?" But I am one of those people who can still sleep pretty well. So for those of you who are watching the video, I have my, of course, Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl mug. It's my favorite mug that says, "If it's morning, this must be coffee." I am a wine drinker. I actually started my happy hour a little earlier before recording. So I did have a glass of, I think it was Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola, or no, not Francis, whatever the hell makes those Coppola wines, Sauvignon Blanc, because I am a white wine drinker. So wine. Okay. So I drink a number of glasses a week. And I should probably mention, in seriousness, wine is one of the risk factors of many different forms of cancer. And in particular, what we're going to talk about tonight is breast cancer. October, as everyone knows, unless you live under a rock, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And pink ribbons and a lot of different companies get involved in what we call cause marketing, selling items that are pink and making contributions to raise awareness and possibly search for a cure, do research, that sort of thing. So it is October, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and my guest is someone who is a breast cancer survivor and a very funny person. I enjoy the hell out of her stand-up comedy that she has done. I've had her on some of my shows, and I'm really pleased to introduce you to Nanci. Oh my gosh. And I used to know how to say your last name, Oehrlein, I believe.
You
Did I
still
get it
know.
right?
You did.
Okay. Well, welcome, Nanci.
Well, thank you very much. I am actually a white wine drinker, just as yourself. I do. I'm more moderate, I think, than I used to be. Might have been could have been one of my risk factors, but I honestly don't think so. I think it had more to do with other factors, such as the fact that I have, well, I should say had, because I had a double mastectomy, but I had what's called dense breasts, and they had a lot of fibroids, and that is how I kind of missed the one that got me, or almost got me. I'm a survivor after all. So that's, just to back up for a second to give you a little bit of history. In 2000 and I think it was 15, they found some abnormal cells after a biopsy. And after going for regular mammograms, I was very diligent about going for them. So I went in and they said, "Oh, we found these cells. We want to remove them." So I had a lumpectomy, which is removing a small portion of your breast. So that was in righty. And funny enough, I had some other stuff going on in lefty that was more concerning to me, but it ended up being righty. That was the one that misbehaved. And then that's the one in 2017, right after I moved to Pennsylvania. That's the one that
Uh-oh.
came at the most inopportune time. And then I had a biopsy, and that was the one where they called me right before Labor Day. It was like Friday at like 4:30. I bet no one wanted to make that call. They probably were flipping a coin, and the loser had to call me and tell me. Um, and I was in shock because, it's like the last thing you ever expect. And even though I was in a monitoring program and I was doing all these things to take good care of myself, I still didn't expect that call. So I said a quirky, funny thing that's so me. I said, "Oh my God, how are we going to make friends here?" Because, we were like new on the block. And so I was kind of worried about that. Great, our new neighbors got cancer. That's a little off-putting, isn't it?
Wah, wah, wah. Yeah.
Right. And then after I made this little quick funny, I then proceeded to walk around for the next 2 weeks. And I did a lot of crying and how could this be happening to me? And I don't deserve this, and all these things that you're trying to negotiate with yourself. And of course, there is no negotiating. Here you are. And then finally I said, "Okay, well, if this is it." Now, and meantime, I made all my appointments. I did all the right things. I didn't just, pout for 2 weeks. And I would say that's a tip. Be speedy. uh, you know, get all your information so you can make your informed decisions, and don't wait, don't put it off. Get that done, get those tests done. So there I was, and I didn't even resemble my normal self. And then I said, well, shoot, if this is it, um, I I can't just be here in the corner of misery. That's no fun. And then I just started to make fun of the situation because it just felt so preposterous to me. That was my word. Like, here I am, and I should say my husband had a big case of heart failure, so much so that we actually moved to Pennsylvania to try to get him on the heart transplant list because it was a better deal than New York. So we were here for
Mm.
him. Like, I didn't have time to be sick. Um, but hey, that's what, life hands you other plans. So then I started kidding around and saying, well, what are we going to introduce ourselves to the neighbors as? Hi, I'm Mrs. Gloom. I've got breast cancer, and this is my husband, Mr. Doom. And like, what do you do? I did name my Wi-Fi that, by the way, when we got,
Oh, that's great.
it's called Gloom and Doom. Yeah, my son came in one time and he was like, "Oh, wait, where did the Wi-Fi go?" I'm like, "We renamed it." And then he said, "Well, which one is it?" And I said, "You'll know." So he found it right away. It's like, "Oh my God, Mom, you're killing me."
So you clearly, and I know because I've had you perform on a couple of my shows, so I've seen your comedy. I know that you use, which many of us, most of us do use what happens in our lives, but you happen to have, as you mentioned, gloom and doom. So you had your health concerns going on, your husband's health concerns, and I know that you've used them as a source of when you write comedy, when you write your stand up. How did that help you with this? I mean, clearly you have a great sense of humor. So you were using that, it seems like, from the beginning. Is that true? Would that be fair to say, from the beginning that you got your diagnosis?
Oh yeah, after the first 2 weeks, and I think, we'd been joking around with my husband for more than that because, you know, it's not enough to just, do all the things that you need to do physically and follow up with all the doctors. A lot of it's in your head. That's a portion of it. And when you have kind of the right mindset, and wherever that needs to be, I mean, not everyone's going to be ready to make these jokes that are a little bleeding edge. That might not be your thing, but it's definitely mine. So, I started just saying these things, and it was mostly because people were just so appalled. I mean, people would gasp when I told them, I'm at work and I'm going, okay, well, I'm going to be out. I'm going to go. I'm going to be out for a couple weeks, and they're like, how many? And then, they got more and more scared as I started giving them details. I was handing out, Janina, I was handing out like breast cancer, like support bracelets. Like, I was trying anything to make it better for everybody else because you can see it, you can feel the concern, you can feel like, oh my God, what can we do for you? So I just kind of got a little silly, and in some ways, as the actual patient, some things are a little easier for you because if you're adjusted to it and you're kind of muddling along, you're watching like the ripple effect as it goes out
Mm.
from where you're at to, your immediate family, your caregivers, who's helping you out with whatever, and your family, your friend. Yeah, you can see it. You can see the effect. So I use it as a way to, I'd like you to treat me, as normal. Um,
Yeah.
I don't want all this special stuff. I don't want you crying over me. Like, I have no plans to die. Um, you know, not on board with that. But I did do things like, I always said, like, right before I went under for an operation, I would always try to say something inappropriate so that if they would just try extra hard to keep me alive, so they wouldn't want to tell my family what my last words were. So I'd be like, I assume you guys know what you're doing, and then they put you out, and they're like, oh my God, we better take extra good care of her because can you imagine if they said, and what were her last words? And then you had to repeat that, you know.
Well, that's
Plus,
a good strategy, actually, Nancy.
I liked it, and I also loosened up everybody in the room, right? I don't want the doctors and the nurses. I don't want everyone all worried out of their mind. I want them to be, feeling good. That's when everybody does their best work, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know what, I love that what you're saying because well, I started a business in 2006, Laugh to Live, and I do laughter yoga, but I like to talk about, with corporations and all different audiences. And I have spoken at a breast cancer awareness group, actually celebration dinner in Maryland, about the value of humor because, like you're saying, you put people at ease with that. Humor is good for the mind, it's good for the whole body, it's good for the spirit. And for you, as the person who is dealing with the disease, like you said, maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea, or maybe it wouldn't come naturally to someone to use humor, but it worked for you and it worked, I guess for the most part for people around you. Now, I'm sure you've probably encountered people who maybe seem a little surprised by the use of humor or maybe aren't as comfortable with it. Have you encountered that? And if you have, what is your response to that then?
Well, yeah, I have actually had people disapprove, which I thought was hilarious. Like, this is happening to me. How dare you disapprove of my coping mechanism? You know, um, it's not hurting anybody, I don't, yeah, but yeah, I did get that, like, almost that insinuation that you're not taking your situation seriously. I'm like, oh, I did. And, moving right along. So if I want to wear a t-shirt, true story, I got one right after my double mastectomy. And I wore it in to the first doctor's visit that I had afterwards. And it said, does this mastectomy make my butt look bigger? Um, you know, why not? Like, and all the nurses were laughing and they're like, running in and bringing in other nurses because this was pre-COVID, of course. And it was like, come in and look, this is great. I'm like, has anyone else had a shirt like this? And they're like, no, they have not. I'm like, okay, well, um, and then they're all like, and how are you feeling? And of course you feel awful, you just had body parts removed. I mean, let's be honest, but I was like, I was waiting for this question. I thought a lot about it. I had nothing but time on my hands. So I said, it's been really great getting in touch with my 14-year-old self. And they were like, oh my God, don't tell the doctor that. I'm like, why not? I specially made this joke for the doctor. And they're like, you can't. She's Canadian. Out of all the responses in the world, I'm like, Canada's known for their humor. Isn't like SCTV and all that stuff, like, isn't that from Canada? Like they do all the sketch
Yeah.
comedy, like they've got amazing
Eugene
comedians.
Levy, Martin
Yeah,
Short.
like, yeah, you could rattle it all off. And I was like, I'm baffled. Why do you think that? No, I'm like, well, if she personally doesn't have a sense of humor, I'm like, but you know what? Sorry, I'm just going to share it with her anyway. And they're like, so that, sure enough, the doctor comes in. She asked me the same question with the same care and concern. And, everyone's so worried about me. So I repeat, it's been great getting in touch with my 14-year-old self. And she throws back her head and cracks up. Indeed, Canadians do have a sense of humor.
There you go. There's proof.
And yeah. And she's like, I was like, you've never had that response before? And she's like, no, never in all my years of medicine. I had a port when I got in for chemo. So I had this big old port and I had a love-hate relationship with that thing. I do recommend getting it, by the way, if you're going to have more than a couple rounds of chemo, get it. It saves your veins. It's very helpful. But I don't know what it was. It was just, we didn't always get along, my port and I. So I named her. So what do you think I called her, Janine? Do you know?
I don't know, but when I'm thinking port, I'm thinking of red wines for the winter, but that's my mind. I don't know.
Okay. I named her Portia. And
Oh.
yeah, I thought it was very delightful, very feminine. And I said, there's got to be some people that did, name their ports this. But when I got my port removed, because they were all like, okay, your port's going to come out now, and this is going to be a procedure. And I was like, do me a favor, juice me up as much as it's legally possible because it hurt going in and I can't imagine it's going to be easy coming out. And I said, Portia and I, we need to part ways. She's done her job, but she's got to go. And they were like, I'm sorry, Portia, who's what? And I'm like, my Portia. I named her. And again, I have never heard of that. I'm like, how many of these things do you take out? You know, I think I'm more appalled for everybody else. Like, has nobody else thought of this? Now, I'm also part of a Facebook group. It's a private group. It's called Finding Humor After Breast Cancer. And it's run by this amazing lady and Cheryl, and she's really, really funny. And she said, when this stuff happens, and she let us join because it was like right in the beginning. And even though I was currently in treatment, she let me and my friend Jenna join. And we just loved it. It was the thing I would scroll through there when I was waiting in the waiting room or waiting for test results or not feeling too great. And it just cracked me up. It never, to this day, I still am a member and I still just go, I could look every single day and there's always some new content and somebody is making me laugh. So I know there's disturbed women and there's a couple women on there that named their port Portia.
So you found your other kindred spirits like you.
I did. And, they're just as disturbed as I am. So they think it's fine. Um, but yeah, as soon as you get a reaction, most of the time, medical professionals in particular, they love it. It's like you give them permission, like it's okay. I am pretty funny. And they zigged and zagged with you. If they could tell you're having a bad day and you weren't as funny, okay. Like the first day I met my oncologist, it was shortly after my double mastectomy and I was going to be starting up the chemo. And I was pretty cranky. I was not that funny that particular day. And so I went in and I just looked at him and I said, you don't believe me now, but I'm going to be your favorite patient. And he was like, okay. And I'm sure he thought she's certifiable and what's going on here. But sure enough, now, that I'm a cancer survivor, when I go in for my checkups to see him, I always go, up, it's your favorite patient. And he says, yes, it is. So the brainwashing has worked.
See, there you go.
Keep,
Have you
keep
ever done
saying it.
anything? Yeah, repetition, right? That's the thing, the key in marketing, saturation. Have you ever done anything for other breast cancer survivors? Because I would think they would love it, like you sharing your perspective using humor, like any kind of like a show or a little something where you entertained anyone else who had breast cancer or was going through what you were going through.
I did a breast cancer fundraiser actually with you. That was a while back.
Yep.
So I did that. And then on a regular basis, I volunteer for an outfit called Chemo Angels. And we adopt a chemo patient. And it doesn't necessarily have to be breast cancer, but we adopt a chemo patient. It could be man, woman, or child. I happen to ask for women that are breast cancer patients. So most of mine have been that. And I write twice a week. And I always say, give me someone with a sense of humor because I'm not going to be able to restrain myself. I mean, that's pretty obvious. And I put all this weird stuff in about my life. And I relay a couple of, I give them a tip, a little pro tip, about getting through chemo and, finding things to look forward to. So there's a few serious items in there, but most of the time it's just really goofy. It's designed to entertain them and take their mind off what's going on. And if twice a week I can bring a smile for 2 minutes, home run, right? That's all I'm
Yeah.
there to do. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Well, I
if
mean,
you
that's
have,
what I'm thinking.
oh, sorry, I was just going to say anybody that's listening, if you know somebody that has cancer and is about to start IV chemotherapy, they can Google it and they can fill out the form. And yeah, we're always looking for new patients to take care of.
And that's Chemo Angels, is that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, that's awesome. No, I was just going to say because your outlook, obviously I think that had to have helped you, but I think you're hilarious. And I mean, I didn't have cancer. I've been fortunate. I haven't had breast cancer, but I still think what you're saying is funny. I mean, probably because I have a little bit of a twisted sense of humor, and that's no insult to you at all. I hope there's no offense taken. But I think there's so much value that you could offer other people who are willing to laugh that could find the humor. So I'm glad that you're sharing your humor with others because I think it's necessary.
Well, it can just get you through a rough patch. I mean, I remember, sitting there and, I went through 4 rounds of this tougher chemo in the beginning, and I really had like nothing left. I would kind of crawl onto my computer and work a little bit, and I had to spread my work out over 6 or 7 days just to try to get some of it done. Um, and that mentally also helped me too, staying at work. I was only out during surgeries. So it sounds, awful, but it was the reverse for me, very helpful. It took my mind off things. But, at night, I had a lot of trouble sleeping, and my family and I, we were watching Walking Dead. So it's my husband,
Hmm.
my son, who was like a senior in high school, and we're watching The Walking Dead, and I start cheering for the zombies. And it's like, what are you doing? I said, I happen to have a lot more in common with them. All right. Because I've lost all my hair and I'm pretty cranky, and I lost a couple body parts there. So those are my people. And they were like, oh my God, my son's like, Mom, really? Honestly. But we laughed. So that's the important part.
Would you please make a t-shirt that says I'm rooting for the zombies? You need one of those too, or maybe you did. Maybe before you needed one.
I think we have one that says something about, uh, well, if the zombies come, I'm tripping you. I should have worn that while I watched it.
I think that's great. I love it. I love it. Now, if you don't mind me asking you just to share a little bit about, so I don't know how you started. I mean, obviously you're a funny person. You have a good sense of humor. You started doing, I had met Roya Hamadani, who's a hilarious person, and she was doing the show. And I said, you know anyone else who might want to do some humor? And she recommended you. So did you start doing stand up as kind of in response to breast cancer as a way to put your humor out there, or had you been doing it before? Because I know your material, then it also involved a lot of what your husband was going through. So I would think that that really helped you. But did you do the material and the comedy, anything before you got your diagnosis?
No, I didn't. It was somebody said something, and I think they were trying to be helpful, like, "Oh, you should really get a bucket list." And I was like, "Did you just say bucket list like I'm about to go? Like, are you kidding me?" And then I really did sit there and think about it. Hey, there I should do a few things. That's kind of the positive side of cancer, is like, okay, the biggest, baddest, scariest thing just happened, or one of them. So after that, it's like jumping off the high diving board in Acapulco or off the cliffs, where you go, oh, that was really frightening. I don't want to do that again. But after you do it, you're a lot less afraid of everything. So yeah, right in the middle of it, I was looking to see what kind of stand-up classes might be available after I finished chemo. And true story, I started like filling, I think I had to put my credit card number in to see how much it cost. And then I accidentally clicked and it went through. Because I had a lot of neuropathy in my fingers, and I couldn't really feel my phone. I wasn't so great with my phone, and I was like, did I just do that? Oh my God, now I got to go. And it was on Saturdays. It was at the Banana Factory. And then the graduation show was at Steel Stacks. I highly recommend it. Ryan Hill taught the class. And yeah, I went, and Roya happened to be there with her husband, her fiance at the time, and they hosted our graduation. And I
Oh, wow.
particularly, yeah, and they were great. And I particularly remember how nice they were, and how I couldn't find an opener for my act. So very flippantly at the rehearsal before the audience came in, I said to my classmates, who, they were so used to me that it didn't even seem weird to them, that I had no hair or eyebrows or anything. So I'm up there and I'm like, hey, by the power of chemo diarrhea, I'm a size 6 tonight, and they're all like, oh my God, you have to use that. It's disturbing. Um, but it was a good experience. I mean, maybe it wasn't the best choice because, there I was with this compromised immune system, and nobody thought about it in those days. They'd be sneezing all over the place, and there you are. Like, I wore masks before they were cool. I was the person on the bus going into New York, with a mask on, and everyone was looking at me like I had the plague. They really did.
Who's
So then
laughing now, huh?
yeah, I had masks in my house. I had the first set. Yeah, when they, you know, and then it would be like the last seat on the bus, and someone would have to sit next to me. And so I used to pretend like I could just wipe my cancer on them. I
Oh
I
man.
tried all kinds of things. I had a mask that had like, breast cancer and said all this stuff, and people never read anything. It was like right there, like, hello, you know. So yeah, I used to kid around that I would play dead, like sleep on the window, and then they get into the seat and I'd be like, "Ugh," and have that little extra Halloween surprise.
You must be really fun to sit next to.
It depends. It depends on who it is. I once got stuck in a 7-hour bus ride, and I think it was before pre-cancer, and it was endless. It was supposed to be 2.5 hours, and it was like 7+ because of the snow. And
Oh man.
I wrote up this whole thing. I did like this Facebook. I don't even know what it was. It was like a blog, and I put all this stuff. I made up that the guy sitting next to me became my boyfriend, and my husband gave me permission because it was such a long trip, but we couldn't share a sandwich. Like, I'm a little out there, I got to say, but cancer gave me permission to just go all in. Why not? You know, if this is it, I definitely want to have a good time and be silly. You can take it all way too seriously. And I know for a fact that I had infusion nurses arguing over me because I was so much fun. So after like the bad chemo was over and I had to keep going for this drug called Herceptin, I had to do that for a year. So I was there like every 3 weeks, I think. It was almost every month. And I'd roll in and I'd be like one of the first appointments of the day because I was like, I had so much energy and was feeling better. I just wanted to get back to my job and my real life. So I'd go in super early. I had this special appointment and they would brawl over me. Well, no, you got her last time because they said I started off their day like on a positive note. So you can get better
Wow.
medical
Well,
care
that
by
should
being
make you
funny.
feel special. Yeah, well, hey, if that's not incentive, I don't know what the hell would be, right? My God.
Yeah, well, it was the only place that was really catering to my every whim. I mean, they would bring you stuff. Like you could go in infusion, they're like, "And what would you like to drink?" And I'm like, "Stop it, really? You're gonna?" And it's like you could just roll out this big old list of, and I want 3 warmed blankets, and I want this. That was not happening for me at my house, by the way. My poor husband, he couldn't even drive a car, so I had to drive myself to chemo.
Oh,
My
wow.
son was in high school. He's finishing up his senior year of high school. Oh, this is a terribly funny story. So I had met with the guidance counselor, I think it was in August when I signed my son up for school in this new school district. Here he is. Everyone feels bad. He's a senior. He doesn't know anybody. We've moved to a whole new state. He knows no one. I sign him up, and the guidance counselor is like, I tell her why we've moved here. It's for my husband. She's like, oh my gosh, she's making all these special notes. Oh boy, okay, great. So I told you that I found out on Labor Day that I had cancer. So I think it was October or shortly after, the guidance counselor calls to check and see how things are going at home. And I think somehow, because I was a little foggy, that she had been told that I had cancer. So she didn't know. And she's asking me how things are going at home. And I'm like, well, it's been a little tricky because, with my cancer treatments. And she's like, I'm sorry, what? And I had to like ruin her day and tell her all about it. And I'm starting to laugh, and she's probably like, what is this? What drugs is this lady taking, for her chemo? Like, what's going on here? And I hang up the phone, and then I tell my husband and my son, what I've just done, that I messed up and didn't prepare her very well. She handled very professionally. Oh my goodness.
Well, that's good.
So they probably put my poor son on suicide watch or something, but you know,
Give him a guard detail, like follow him around, right?
let's shadow him to all his classes for now. Just for now.
No special reason. We're just here in case you need us.
I did
Pretend we're
tell
not here.
I did tell my son, I'm like, I'm really sorry about this. I wouldn't have mentioned it, but I accidentally did. So if you get called down, you'll you'll know why. He's like, Mom.
So let me ask you about, clearly we talked about a sense of humor is not appreciated the same way, right, as it by everyone. And with what you were going through, I remember, I think it was, I forget which show it was. It might have been both. And you did this joke, if and I apologize if I don't remember exactly, but it was this joke you did about being in Costco and you were looking, I think it was like a deal on coffins or caskets, if I something like a 2 for
Oh,
1
it
or one
was
of those deals.
way too edgy. Yes. Yes. I kind
Yeah,
of
it was a little
dropped it.
dark.
Yeah, I dropped that one.
I
I was
just
like,
remember the audience being a little like, now I am a little whatever I am. I laughed. I mean, again, I don't know what your thoughts about how it went or whatever, but so I guess my question is kind of, it's like a question and a statement where my thoughts are always, if you are using humor as a way to cope with things in your life, but other people do laugh, and maybe not everyone, but other people do laugh, but it's about you using it to cope. So I'm like, hey, that's cool. Like you're using it and you're not really hurting, you're not hurting anyone. What, I guess, what are your thoughts on that as far as some people just, they're not going to, some people like the silly humor. Some people like, they don't want to think about their own death, I'm guessing, or whatever. But that's not the way I see it. That's not your problem. You know what I mean? So I don't know. What are your thoughts on, I just feel like sometimes we're headed in this direction with humor and what words and things we can say that it may not be the best direction. And I'm not talking about obvious, overt like sexism, racism. I'm just talking about things that are uncomfortable. I don't, if we make people uncomfortable, my response to that is too bad, but that's my response. What do you think about that as far as making people maybe just a little uncomfortable, but maybe it's just not their kind of humor or whatever? And I just thought of that one particular joke you did.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're always running the risk when you're, joking around. You're always running the risk that you're going to offend somebody. You will. Almost 100% of the time, you're going to offend somebody. Now, how many people are you going to offend? And should you push the envelope? Should there be like that one edgy joke in your routine that you're like, woo, and sometimes it depends on where you're at. If you're with, a cool group of cancer survivors, they may think that is hilarious. And you may be somewhere else and they're like, oh, that was, you just have to be willing to take a little bit of a risk. The reason the Costco joke started was because it seemed like we were always in Costco. We were like, it'd be like, oh, you have enough energy to go to like one store today. Where are we going to go? We're going to go to Costco, obviously. Okay. you know, um, and then I came up with, well, what is going to happen if he dropped dead? Like, what would happen there? What would they do? And then I finished it up with, and what about my cart? It's full of stuff. Is it tacky if I come back later and pick it up? Now, obviously, I don't mean that. It's just, it's being playful with a very touchy subject. And I've had other funny things happen to me in Costco. So I was there with my son. He needed to get some stuff for school. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but a lot of times on chemo, you can get either terribly constipated or you could go the other way. So that day we were, getting ready to leave and I'm like, uh-oh. So I go running into the bathroom at Costco. Now, the one by me has this massive bathroom. It's a warehouse. That's, it's huge, this bathroom. There's like 3 families in there. There's all these people. And I felt immediately sorry for them because I knew what was going to happen. So I'm in there doing my business and there's a particular odor, shall we say, it's all these bad chemicals coming out of your body. And I'm proud to say I cleared that bathroom. They all immediately, oh my God, what is that? And they just left. They all left. So I come out and my son's like, you know, I love it because he was just like annoyed with me as if I could help any of this, right? He's like, oh, you were forever in there. And I'm like, I just want you to know I cleared that bathroom, I'm like patting myself on the back for that one. And he's just like, oh God. Um, you know, you can cry or you can laugh. I couldn't wait to tell the people on my Facebook page, all my friends from Finding Humor After Breast Cancer and my best friend, like I couldn't wait for them to hear about it. And that was another thing I did. I kept in touch with a lot of different people, friends and family. And I think I kind of gave them permission to do that because they weren't going to tune in and hear me go, woe is me, I don't feel good. I would just give them like whatever joke I had kind of shopped around that week, and had fun with. I would relay these ridiculous things that happened to me. And again, isn't that a lot better than, saying, oh my God, it was so embarrassing and this was so painful for me. I just kind of flipped it around. I'm like, this was hilarious, you know.
I love it. I mean, I think, and to the point earlier, I think what I was trying to make, not like when people get uncomfortable, too bad for them, but I just feel like you had said, giving permission. I think there's sometimes this such stigma around topics and around our real feelings and how we should look, and it's the perfect life. And it's not, like gas happens, diarrhea happens, all this stuff happens. And it is funny. I mean, well, geez, ask any 4-year-old and they'll tell you, or any male,
Oh yeah.
any boy at like 12, those jokes are the funniest for them. And I'm not saying that, but like just being real and being honest, and with the discomfort or uncomfort, we need to have like openness and conversations. That's why I just think that's the whole point of some humor. I mean, not just healing, but even getting us to put our guard down and just have conversations, and just try to work through things. I don't know. I think we need that. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, but we can get past that.
Absolutely. There's an article, I forget what it's called. I blame, by the way, all my memory loss on chemotherapy, but it may just be that I'm having a senior moment and I don't care. It's all a mix probably. But there's this thing and they talk about the circles. So you are the patient. This is happening to you. And then you go to the next circle and that's, my husband and my son, because they're experiencing this. So if I'm going to complain, I complain out, but people on the outer rings are not supposed to complain to me. And that is something I find really, really funny when someone like 5 layers out complains about you to you. I'm sorry I made you feel uncomfortable. Or like gives you an attitude like, aren't you done with your treatment yet? Like almost acting like you're scamming, no, I actually I extended my treatment because it was just such a good time. So I'm glad you caught on to that. Really? Uh, I had a little joke with my husband. He's got the heart failure. By the way, in case anyone doesn't know, he did get his transplant and he's doing great. So it's all good there.
Yay. I'm
Um,
so happy to hear that. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So, but right after I had my double mastectomy, it actually got bumped back a few days to get the surgeon that I wanted, and it landed at the very beginning of October. And I was kidding around that I got a lot more gifts that way. And it really did feel like that. So every time like the UPS man or whatever would drop something off, I'd be like, and it's for me, not you. And then I started calling it cancer versus heart. And I'm like, this month I win. Like it's this competition. And then we further expanded it to television. So every time we saw a prescription drug medicine commercial come up, we'd call it "I take that," and we'd say, "Do you take that?" And then you'd add up all your points. He usually won that. I'm not going to lie; it's very annoying. But yeah, we're just being goofy.
These sound like they'd make great. I know you guys don't really drink, but great drinking games. Drink if you take this
Oh
medicine.
yeah, clearly, yeah. And probably not the best thing for you if you're on all of them, but yeah,
No, that you're right. That's true. That's true.
we just, we had fun. That was like another thing I worried about. Like I almost wanted that message to come across, and that's what they said at the stand-up class, like the first day when because you had to read some of your thoughts, and I think it was like one of the first people to go, which was really awkward because I'm reading all this stuff and there's like this stunned silence in the class because they're just digesting me, right? And these weren't even full jokes; they were just like little things I was thinking. And then Ryan looked at me very patiently, like I was completely insane, and said, "So your premise is that you have all these health challenges, but you're still fun." And I'm like, "Yes, that's it." And then we fully developed the joke till that it worked out and became like a little thing I hung my hat on. So it was fun.
Well, and I think you're hilarious. And it sounds like, honestly, everyone that's been on your journey with you, for the most part, has enjoyed your sense of humor, or else they don't have one, in my opinion. But what would you say, just to circle back to just a little seriousness before we close? I'm sure, I know this is a broad question, so maybe I'll try to make it a little more specific, but this October is breast cancer awareness month, as we know. But I mean, obviously there's not just one month for anything, right? We need to be taking care of ourselves as women. Breast self exams, getting mammograms. Is there any specific tips that you feel are not really addressed that you as a survivor would want to share with women, about taking care of our own health, or as far as warning signs, or things that helped you? Any bits of wisdom that you'd want to share?
Yeah, I think if you can afford it and you have good insurance, you should get yourself a primary care doctor, and that primary care doctor should really be letting you know all the things that you need to schedule. You're a woman, you want to make sure that you go to the gynecologist in a timely fashion. You get your mammograms, book them right away, and you know what? Don't move them. When you move a mammogram these days, there's like a big wait list of people, and you don't want to get that moved and then you're 6 months late getting the thing, or you don't want to say, "Oh, I'm scared to go because I don't want to find out." It's going to happen. What I think is sad is when it's something that could have been caught early. Like my cancer was caught at stage 2A, so it had not spread to my lymph nodes. I had a very good prognosis. um, I was being monitored. I was being monitored by a very large hospital. I I made sure once I found out, I was at risk and I'd had that lumpectomy, that I made every single appointment. And I refused to move anything after that point. And I had never done that in my life. Everybody was more important than me. And you can't give from where, when you're an empty cup, there's nothing there. You're not gonna be able to help everybody. And it was very dramatic for me. I'm like, I can't help my husband, um, you know, get his situation squared away if I don't make it out of this treatment. I have to take this super, super seriously. And he's going to have to take on some of the things that I was doing that he's perfectly capable of doing. You know, you can make a phone call. I was a very independent, you know, cancer patient. I did a lot of things for myself, but I had to write all these different lists, because you're kind of foggy. You can't remember. I remember seeing a tip about, oh, this is a good one. GPS everything. Even if you're just going to do like a routine errand, a place you've been a million times before, GPS it. And I thought, why would they ever say that? And you know what? One day, I drive up and I'm like, where am I? That's how cloudy I was. And I look, oh, I'm at the supermarket. Oh, look at that. And remember, I was living in a newer town. So, a little
Yeah.
bit of chemo, a little bit of this, and suddenly, you are almost scared, like, oh my gosh, where am I? But hey, you hit home and GPS and you can get there. So yeah, following up on everything, knowing your risks. If you have particularly dense breasts, you may want to ask for additional tests. Um, and if you're not satisfied, if you're like, I don't, yeah, I was exhausted. I was napping all the time. And that is, one of those things. It can be um, a symptom of cancer that's not talked about very often. But I mean, it was way more than normal. And I thought, oh, I just moved. We were still putting our house together. We were on the road all summer with my son's travel baseball team. I thought that was what was going on. I was just not sleeping well. It had nothing to do with it. That was the cancer. So if you're really exhausted and you don't know why, get it checked. What is the worst thing that can happen? They could just tell you you're crazy. Okay. Um, and another thing that I think is good to do is you make those appointments, you do your follow up, you do all the things, and you try to like close the book on your worry. If you can spend so much time, oh my God, what if this happens? What if that happens? And what if the worst? And what if it returns? And what if this and what if that? But you're going to miss out on your life. I have sincerely, I have a second chance. I don't want to screw it up. And I don't want to turn around, 4 years from now and had a miserable 4 years. Is everything perfect? No, of course not. I would rather it never happened. Um, but on balance, I would actually say I am a happier person now, because I didn't share a lot of those jokes and things that I would say in my head. I would share them with like my best friends only. I didn't, and sometimes if I was exhausted and really, really tired, I would I would say a few things, and people used to think like, oh, she's, if I was out, having drinks, they would be like, oh, she's kind of trash. That's why she said that. That was inner me, inner funny me was always there, but I didn't let her out very often. I was very worried about being very, very serious, except with my closest friends. And, after everything happened, it was like, I was like, oh, hey, I might as well share some of this. And most people have been receptive, and the ones that aren't, I'm not really worried about them.
Good. Well, I am so glad you did share, honestly, because I've loved watching you do stand up. I think you're hilarious and smart. And I think we need more of that out in the world, honestly. And I know there are people out there who probably were really moved or it meant something to them, giving them a better day laughing. So I thank you and I appreciate what you've been doing.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it's fun, and I love listening to other comedians. That was something that I did too, when I really, I didn't feel well. I would sit there and watch stand up on Netflix, and only the best ones really got me to laugh, but they were, that was amazing, and your body feels better if you feel a little bit better. Things don't seem, quite so bad. And I would just be like, okay, well, I'm gonna Netflix and whatever I have to do to get myself through this period of time. Oh, and I didn't look at all the different. I had 16 rounds. So when the doctor first started to try to tell me how many rounds there were, I was like, shh, I don't want to know. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, that's a big number. And I don't want to hear that right now. I'd like to pretend there's only these four here in the beginning. You'll tell me about some of the other ones later, but I don't want to know the number. You'll just tell me when I'm done. Okay. You promise you won't let me go to extra. And he's like, no, 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 I won't. I'm like, okay, it's a deal. So I'm like a little bunny hopping through the forest. Um, I know that the forest is dark and scary and I have to go through it. But I feel no need to have a detailed description about all the wolves that are in there and how many of them there are and what might happen if things go wrong. Like maybe we could just not talk about that part. I think that also helped me with some of the side effects. You know, by the way, they give you a really big list. Janine, I don't know. I hope you never experience this or anyone doesn't, but they give you like this super duper big list of all the side effects and they make you sign off on this.
Oh
And
boy.
yeah, and it's huge. And it's like it goes on, and at least mine was. And I was like, it went like on and on. And I just looked at the nurse and I was like, I just kind of signed it. And she's like, did you did you read that carefully? I'm like, look, I whipped through it, and I can tell you this for a fact, no sane person would ever sign that. So I don't want to know. Like, let's just giddy up.
Well,
Let's get this going.
yeah,
That
giddy
was
up.
what I said. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of us can relate, as far as that idea, what you're saying. A lot of us need to get through things. A lot of times I think it might be more helpful to be in the moment. Like you said, don't tell me about how many rounds or whatever. Let's deal with what's excuse me on our plate right now, literally in the moment. I mean, I always say I'm not a fast runner. I'm certainly not, but I have done, 2 marathons. I've done many half marathons. And the way I get through running, because it's not easy for me, I'm not like a super athlete, is what's in the moment. And one of the tips a friend gave me when I was running is like, okay, you're starting to struggle, look up and go, okay, run to that next trash can that you see. Okay, now run to that next light post that you see. Small increments, small mile markers. And sometimes, no matter what it is, the struggle, whether it is an illness or whatever, dealing with what's in the moment and making little milestones, little things to get along the way. Because if we looked at everything that we have to go, how far we have to go ahead, that's overwhelming for pretty much everyone, I would think. So I like that you brought that up. Like, let's not look that far down the road.
Yeah, just dial it back just a tiny bit, and then that made me and I would just kinda look to, like, what's the next thing, and if I had a bad day, just like you said, I would just be like, "Okay, well," I also saw this little thing that is saying that said, "My track record for getting through, rough things is like 100%." Right? Even if you didn't do great, you still finished it. Sometimes you literally just wait for whatever it is to end, and that's where, I found humor to be a really nice distraction. Um, worked for me, not every single time, but a lot, quite a bit, and just taking my mind off. Let's, give it something else to do. Um, and then it did keep, I swear, it kept people in touch with me. It was almost like this story, like this continuation story. Oh my God, what happened to you this week? I shudder to ask, there's got to be something. I'm like, oh yeah.
You should have had a YouTube series. I think people would have tuned in.
Yeah, well, it's a missed opportunity. I'm not even going to say like, oh, next time, because no, no,
No,
no.
don't say that. Don't say that.
No, no,
Don't say it.
I want nothing to do with that. We're, I keep telling my husband, like, you have to hurry up and get better after he got his transplant and start to, go through all that was like a year-long process. So I said, we're the miracle couple. Work with me. Hurry up, get better.
You got to catch up. Any final thoughts before we wrap up here? I want to say again, I thank you and I appreciate you for sharing everything. I think a lot of women can benefit from this. A lot of people in general listening, but I think especially women. Anything else that you wanted to mention before we close?
Uh, Gosh, I don't know. I had all these thoughts, but I think we covered a lot of them. Um, I would say that, if you're having some type of, you're getting some bad news or you're having a crisis moment, it really does help to write things down, and, try to pay attention to just some of the logistics. That always helped settle me down. Um, One time in particular, it was like I had literally just finished chemo. I was still kind of fuzzy, and I was like writing all these things down. And I'm looking. I'm like, oh, which room number did he have? We were on this. He's here at UPenn. He's on this floor. Okay. And I'm looking and I'm looking, and then this nurse bumps into me because I didn't write down. I think I missed a digit on the room numbers, and then she said, "Are you lost?" Because she literally thought I was on the wrong floor, that I was supposed to be on the cancer floor, and there I was on the heart floor. And then I said, "Sadly, no. uh, I'm right where I'm supposed to be." And she had a little like, ugh. And then I went in to see my husband, and I realized the responsibility that we have for everyone that we love. So we took a really funny picture where we were both like sticking out our tongues, and then we sent it out to everyone with the caption, "We're taking our health very seriously." And that's what we did, and it helped us. It helped everybody else. You don't go through anything alone. There's all these people that care about you, and they want everything to be perfect, and they don't want this terrible stuff to be happening to you. So you can just swap out the word cancer and fill in something else. Everybody's got stuff. But yeah, you want to get information out, but you also want it to be in a manner that maybe people can handle it a little bit better. And you keep like the really, you can keep the really rough stuff for the people that need that. And then maybe in your outer circles, maybe they can get something a little more watered down. Um, and that helps you as well. So that was my method. Maybe that helps somebody.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again, Nancy. This has been such a pleasure. I hope that I get to see you doing stand up again. Is this something that you want to do again? I mean, I imagine you want to perform again. You certainly should because you're funny. Is this something that you're going
Uh,
to be doing anytime soon?
I'm not planning to. Well, right now I kind of need to, stay away from crowds and venues
True.
and things like that. So that's one thing. It's very time consuming to work and to do all the writing and to get it right. So for now, I'm concentrating on. I'm planning to be a good audience member. I've been trying to work out, work on my physical self, and that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like a really good audience member, and I'm fun on a conference call.
Well, I think those are both very valuable. So we do need audience members, and I shouldn't even say we because I'm barely performing these days and I do miss it. But well, I hope to see you sometime in the future, whether it's in the audience or behind the microphone, because you are a pleasure. So thank you, Nanci Oehrlein. Did I say it right again?
You did. You got it right both times.
All right. So thank you again, Nanci Oehrlein, and for sharing everything that you've shared. Women who are listening, please, take care of yourself. Don't put yourself last. Put yourself first. Take care of your health. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but whether you do it now or sometime soon, make sure you make that mammogram appointment if you are 40 years old. Look on the CDC for the different guidelines. Maybe if it runs in your family, you may need to have a mammogram sooner, but please take care of yourselves. Carve out some time for you. And you've been listening to Funny Wine Girl. This is Janine Luby, and this has been Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl podcast. Please share with others who may want to listen and enjoy it. And please feel free to reach out to me, Funny Wine Girl Janine on Facebook, Funny Wine Girl Janine on Instagram. And take care of yourselves. Uncork some goodness, some health, some joy, some laughter.